something you learned? Were you born an entrepreneur?
You got to start small.
I have not allowed being a woman to hold me back.
Credibility is not just making money, it's about making sure that people trust what you're doing.
Law practice is not only about going to court, it's about advice.
It's very difficult to hire somebody who's not motivated and then make them motivated.
One of the things that I'm known for is integrity.
They have to see you as a person of integrity.
Welcome to the Executive Lounge with me, Inshira Addo, and this is the Business Thought Leadership Program that brings you insights from the experiences of men and women who have scaled the daunting heights of either starting their own business or managing organizations right here at home and around the world. Our guest today is native to Jamaica, but she's been living in Ghana for well over a decade and a half, and she will be sharing her experiences as the acting executive director of the Ghana Heritage Conservation Trust. We'll be talking some tourism, and we're going to find out how we can take a nice chunk of the $7.16 trillion industry. Welcome, Maisie Howell.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you with us on the Executive Lounge today. And the first thing I really would like to learn is Jamaica really truly like Ghana?
It's like a little piece of Ghana washed away.
That's interesting.
Yes. The lay of the land, Jamaica is quite mountainous. We are mainly mountains and rivers and few plains. Interestingly, there's an area in Jamaica called Akompong, which has a very strong African Ghanaian history, because during the days of slavery, the slaves would revolt. And in one of those group of slaves who were brought to Jamaica was a brother and a sister. The brother was Kojo, and the sister was Nanny. She was considered a priestess, and she was a warrior. And so she decided that she would never tolerate enslavement. And so she would wage wars on the plantations. And because the country is so mountainous, and because there were black people in the mountains, the slaves, as much as possible, would run away to the mountains, and Nanny and her people would accept them. And so it got very bad until finally the British had to sign a peace treaty with her. And so that's the only free village in Jamaica, because the British decided that we can't beat her and her army, so let's sign a peace pact with them. And they agreed not to accept runaway slaves. And in the western end of the country is an area called Akompong. And to this day, the lifestyles and traditions of the people, it's like the Ashanti Kingdom. It's headed by a colonel instead of a chief. They still speak the indigenous tree that maybe you will not understand, because it has evolved over time in Ghana. But they have kept the customs. And so if you know Akropong in the eastern region, it's a similar landscape, very mountainous, so people can hide in it and so. And so the history ties us at that end as well. And Akompong has now attracted millions of tourists over the years. Wow. Despite the fact that it's an African culture dwelling in a Western country, but it is so pure in its nature that it attracts a whole lot of tourists every single year.
What has been the key attraction for tourists across the globe from your experience and travels?
It's usually experiences and historical events. For instance, Ghana, we have the slave dungeons, so that's an attraction for a particular group of people. Again, in Ghana, we have places like the Kakum National Park, which is experience. Jamaica, we usually say we're sand, sea, and sun, and people. But then we also have relics from the slave trade. We also have relics from the former inhabitants, the Awak Indians, so we still have relics from there. And so it differs in each country or each locality. Sometimes it's just the culture of the people. Ghana, we have the festivals, we have the dances, we have the arts, we have the fashion. So it varies, and I actually think Ghana has a very good mix.
What drew you to Ghana?
Work.
Oh.
Yes. I came to Ghana, my tour of duty was for 6 months. I came to set up a company which was originally from Jamaica. My employer had been coming to Africa for years, and he just thought, we need to do something in Africa, we need a presence. We looked at another country, but at the time it wasn't politically favorable, and because he had strong ties with Ghana, so we came to Ghana. I never had any plans of coming to Africa. I was a sympathizer, even though I was fairly young, and I would support things African, Winnie Mandela, Nelson Mandela, that kind of thing. So if there's a march or so, I will support it. And so I was proud of my Africanness, but had no plans to come. And this is interesting. We had the first African shop in Jamaica, Africana House. And my boss had traveled to Africa, of course, and I was attending to some customers. And then one person said, "Where's your boss?" And I said, "He traveled." They said, "To Africa?" I said, "Yes." And she said, "So when are you going?" And I just said, "Next year." I just said it like that. And that was in December, I remember. And by the next year, December 12th, I landed in Ghana.
Wow.
So it wasn't planned at all. But I came to work, I came to set up the office and stay around like for 6 months so we could train someone into our work culture, that kind of stuff. Well, this was 1995. And things were different. 6 months down the line, well, let's say we haven't found our footing. So I stayed the year. At the end of the year, I took my 2 suitcases and I went home, bye-bye, Ghana. And a few months later, my boss said, "You kind of need to go back for another 6 months." And I did that for several years. We then moved over into Nigeria and set up, so I used to hop between Nigeria and Ghana. And then finally he said, "Well, we're moving house." And I said, "I don't want to go." So my options were either to go back home or stay. But over the time, because I was the head of the business here, and I dealt with organizations, and so I saw an opportunity. At the time, I realized that most companies had a challenge getting quality corporate gifts and promotional items. And there were stories: you will pay, you'll either get half, none at all, or so. And because by that time I knew the Ghanaian market very well. By that time I'd been to every single region because we're trying to break into the market. And so in Ghana I was manager but supervised marketing. And then when I go out, I would be the purchasing manager and basically look for some novel but practical items for the market. And so I decided I would stay for a while. So I did corporate gifts and promotional items. My motto then was quality, price, and time. I could get you the best quality at the best price. And
on time.
And the shortest time. And there are a few times I had to say to a few clients, "Don't pull this one again." You just got lucky that I could deliver at this time, but we're last minute people.
Absolutely.
Don't pull this again.
It's a very intriguing story, having to travel to a place first that you hadn't planned on going to, and then settling, 22 years?
Yes.
Fantastic.
You checked up on me.
That's right. But so,
yes.
You, after doing all of these and going through all these experiences, you then started working with the Ghana Heritage Conservation Trust.
Yes, after many, many years. As you say, it's a trust. So I became a trustee. How it works is that we don't advertise whenever there are vacancies. It's sitting trustees who recommend persons to join, and there are various criteria because of what we do, heritage. So we get people from different backgrounds: architects, need someone in law, someone in events, various different areas. But also these had to be people who would be willing to give service. It is not like your normal board where you take a salary or so. You get a sitting allowance when you sit or if you attend a special meeting. So basically it was like serving. At the time on the board was a vacancy for someone from the Caribbean. And everyone on the board, they're on the board in their personal capacity. So regardless of your country or the organization that you're from, you're there in your own capacity, because as trustees, you're held accountable for life. So even when you leave, something that happened on your watch, could come up.
Right.
So you had to be, I was about to say, of integrity. I said that because then it's like an implication. Okay, but yes, so that's how we were selected. So the then board chair and the executive director, who had worked with me during the emancipation period with the Minister of Tourism, and so I didn't know that they saw something, but they recommended me to the board, and I joined. And later on, I'm like, wow, I actually have a passion for this. I love culture, I love people, and I like to serve. So that's how I came onto the board, and I've served the board in different capacities for a while. And now, yes, we had a vacancy at the secretariat for a while. It was going to be for a short time. And so the board needed someone who understood how the board functions and how the secretariat is supposed to function in order to deliver on our objectives. And so I was selected.
Come at the time, come at the woman.
Well, yes. And looking back, I said, it's the right time. I was prepared for this. 2 years ago, maybe I wouldn't, but nothing beats the right time.
Yeah.
So it's the right time.
Absolutely. So we're going to take a short break in a moment. Before we do, let's try and get a sense of the scope of the Heritage Conservation Trust's work.
Okay, it's pretty broad, the Ghana Heritage Conservation Trust. The name speaks for itself, Heritage Conservation. Just that we are unique in the way we are. The trust was set up by an endowment fund from the U.S. government through USAID. And it's partly to support the work of, say, the castles, making sure we maintain them, communities around. And then by extension, the Kakum National Park, where the Canopy Walkway is, and around the park are all these communities. And so we work with different partners and stakeholders. Two of our key partners are the Wildlife Division of the Forestry Commission, because the Canopy Walkway is located in the heart of the primary forest at Kakum. And so the Wildlife Division, they operate there. And so the Canopy Walkway is in there. The forest reserve is actually made up of the primary forest, which is dense, and then the secondary forest, which is a bit more sparse with a bit of savanna. And so that's one of our partners. Then we have the Ghana Museums and Monuments Board, where we support them to maintain the forts and castles in the central region so that they don't fall into decay. Because while there's a Museum and Monuments Board, sometimes the funding, quite recently, I think it was 2015, there was an incident in one of those castles, and so they came to us and we funded. And so we have been doing that. And then we also have the communities around the park. Generations ago, that forest was just open for everybody in the communities. They could fell trees, they could hunt animals, they could burn, they could farm, they could do whatever. So when the government of Ghana decided to protect that area, then you say, what happened to the people? And so one of the mandate of the Ghana Heritage Conservation Trust is to assist the people around the area to improve their livelihoods in various forms.
Right.
So we find ourselves having interventions in education. For instance, one of the communities not too far from the park, an area called Abrafo, there's a primary school there. And so we have set up a 50-seater ICT center for the entire catchment area around that area, because we found out that the students in that area, they weren't doing ICT because they didn't have computers. And so the community actually came to us asking for a library. And we looked at it and thought, you know, maybe an ICT center would be a better thing. We know of the history of libraries over Ghana. They're built, they're stocked with books, nobody reads them, and then they just become dormant. And so we thought that one way we could make an impact in this area was to set up an ICT center. So we set up a 50-seat ICT center, and we work with the GES on these. So therefore, the schools around where there is ICT on their timetable, they come with their teachers to the center. We have someone there who looks after the center, but he also has ICT background. Because something that we have found, many of the teachers are weak in ICT. So even teaching the students, you know, there are weaknesses, and this person is able to assist. And I must say, over the 5 years since we have started, we have seen, well, the students are now doing ICT. And we have seen over the 5 years where the last exam, I think we had about 80% pass in ICT.
Fantastic.
And this is going from students who have never seen or experienced a computer or a laptop or so, to actually seeing it, using it, and then confidently doing their exams and passing. And you know how it is with education, you know, you grow, your household grow, and so what was interesting, we were doing an audit recently, and we asked, what do the people feel about what we're doing generally? And someone said, well, they always say because of JHCT, our children know no computer. You know, so we make interventions like those. The catchment area of schools, again, for the past 2 years, we have funded, there's a quiz competition that brings all the schools together, and the level is very high. And so we support that as well. We are presently looking at an education fund. Actually, this was meant to support the JSS levels.
Junior high school.
Junior high school
That's
levels. Right. And then we were set to implement this September, and then free SHS came on the scene. So we said, all right, let's see if it comes. It has come. So now we're looking at the tertiary level. But then we also have interventions into sanitation, because, you know, a healthy people is a wealthy people. And so there are some communities where sanitary facilities are basically non-existent. And you know, this is one of the things in Ghana, it's a bane, we're trying to work around it. So we assist in that area. Our latest project, which we will commission this month, we did a 20-seater washroom for the Jokwa community. From all of this, and then, you know, we work with all these people. So you can imagine over time, the pressure for support, and we have only so much support, because while there's that endowment fund there, we cannot use the endowment fund. It would have been finished.
That's right. So you live off the interest.
So it's the interest that we draw down, and depending on how the U.S. economy runs, your interest sometimes could go up and down, and then you had to leave a certain amount in. And so the amount of money available to do projects is limited. Our operations, that's the operations at the park and the office, are not funded from the endowment fund.
Right.
We have to generate the revenue locally to run the operations. So whatever comes in from the endowment fund is basically to support our partners for projects. And so there was a time you had a request from here, a request from here, and basically we're just bombarded, so to speak. And so at the board level, we thought, we need to manage this. You also have to make sure there's equity, that one community, because of proximity or whatever, does not seem to be benefiting more than the others. So we put in place what we call the Community Advisory Committee. And this is made up of representatives from all our stakeholder groups. So the DCEs, because you can't go into a community and start a project without the local authorities on board. We can't do it without our chiefs on board and our other partners. So we have set up a Community Advisory Committee. And so when the requests come to us, we forward it to this committee. And among themselves, they choose 1 or 2 projects for the year. And once it falls in line with our mandate, we get support for it. So now we can more or less see our way clear. But in the early days of Ghana Heritage Conservation Trust, they've made quite a bit of intervention. The Fort St. Jago was in ruins. We have renovated that. The St. George's Castle, there is a workshop section there which was totally ruined. And so we have also renovated that, and now it is there are shops, so at least it's revenue generating. And we have also done about 15 houses in the Cape Coast Elmina area, and these are what we call historical homes. They're part of Ghana's history from way back then. And we thought for tourism it would be good. So it's like a walkthrough tourism. We did the renovation around the families living in the houses. But we also trained them to do the tours, but also in other livelihood, things to generate income, whether it is dressmaking or so that they could generate some income. We also felt that by having the people involved, they would appreciate, the value of these structures and would help to maintain it. And also because they will be generating livelihood as well.
And how has that worked?
It worked for a while, but then more family members moved into the houses, So basically, there is little or no wiggle room for the visitor to pass through. We want to take a look at that again to see if we can look at the structure in a different way. Also, in the terms of heritage conservation, there is the former, we used to call it the Pittman Building. It was the former Court of Appeal for the Gold Coast. And it's now vacant. And so it's one of the big projects we're aiming for, hoping we can find some partners to support us both technically and financially, so that all the judgments that were given during the Gold Coast, that we'll bring them back there. It will also be a research center, and it will have accommodation and other stuff, but it'll also be one of the relics that has stayed in Cape Coast, because Cape Coast is education, but I think it's very important knowing that the first Court of Appeal is there.
Cited.
The building my office is in was the old governor's house.
Wow.
We renovated it, and so we renamed it Heritage House, and so we are there as well.
Fantastic stuff. So the trust has certainly been very busy, and looks like your mandate clearly is not just about enhancing or preserving the heritage, but more importantly, that you bring the communities into it and ensure that their livelihoods are not negatively impacted by what you do.
But if you don't do something, what is going to happen? Yes. So
true.
if you move someone out of their normal space and put them somewhere else, you have to, as much as possible, you can't get it 100% right, but as much as possible, you have to help them to readjust and to feel settled in this area so that they don't venture back out. And so community relations is extremely important to us. Very important. We don't take it for granted. We don't take our traditional rulers for granted. We keep building on the relationship. And recently we outdoored some new attractions at Akakum National Park. I think you were there.
Yes.
You saw the chiefs in full regalia. There was no space. And this is to show that it's not perfect, but as much as possible we try to work that relationship. We keep reassuring them that you are important to us. We can't do it without you. Their solidarity statement that they gave, said a whole lot, that, they support us in whatever we do. It's not perfect, but we have to. So we do these interventions. We look into communities. Aside from the requests that comes in, there's an area called Krua, and we realize that there are a lot of bamboo in Krua. And so now bamboo is the newest thing. So we have gotten into a relationship with an NGO that works with bamboo. So we have set up a bamboo craft center, trained a few people, and so we're now getting into the stage of doing some production. And we have to, you know, fix this within their farming time, because these are farming communities. And so it is something to do when they are not on the farm, and it will bring some income as well.
Great. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about this big pie worth $7.16 trillion and what are the peculiar upsides for Ghana from Maisie's perspective. Stay tuned. This is the Executive Lounge, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Executive Lounge with me, Inshira Addo, and my guest, Maisie Howell, Acting Executive Director of the Ghana Heritage Conservation Trust. We've learned a lot about what the Conservation Heritage Trust has been doing. Let's talk now about this big piece of pie, $7.16 trillion as at 2016, set to grow even more. What are the upsides for tourism in Ghana if we're to carve a nice chunk of this pie?
Upside, I would say, first thing is identifying, packaging, training, and marketing.
Wow. Okay, now let's unpack them. So what are we going to identify? What's required to identify?
We keep emphasizing the ones we already know. The Cape Coast Castle, the Kakum National Park, and Mole, that kind of thing. But as I go around Ghana on a daily basis, I don't know if it is because I'm from a country where we sell what we have, which is a natural state. There are just so many things we haven't packaged. I'll give you an instance. I'm in the Elmina area. My office is in the Cape Coast. And so coming in just about every morning, you see, before you get to Bacano, you see a long line of men pulling in their nets, and it's a long line of men. They're there every morning. And I was thinking, wow, it's just that I don't have time. I would like to join this line, even if I had to pay just for the fun of it, or maybe I decide, okay, I can maybe build some muscles or things like that. But that's a tourism product. If we package it well, you know, visitors, it's an experience.
Like you said, exactly.
Yes, it's an experience. So that is something that can package the local fishermen, also benefit or the communities around. There are other areas where we have, as we say, flora and fauna, unique to Ghana. We have some wildlife which is unique to Ghana. We have more than 100 species of butterflies, for instance, in that Kakum area. Wow. And for each one of the little areas you find, there are people out there who are passionate about these, and they will pay to come and experience. Presently at Kakum, one of the products we have is bird watching, and tourists come and they pay
just to go and watch birds,
just to do bird watching. And so aside from the major, the big ones that are in your faces, there are just so much more. We sell our festivals, but then there's sometimes the aspects of our culture or things we do or how we do that is so unique that we haven't put a brand on, and we haven't identified it and packaged it and then said, who do we sell this to? The other thing has to do with, so you identify, you package, and you go to sell. But there's a missing link. I have been in Ghana many years, and I've actually managed hospitality location. And one of the biggest things is the problem with service. It is way too low. We have some visitors who will put up with it and say, oh, these are Africans, what do you expect? So they take whatever they get. But no, we have to raise the bar for even ourselves. And what I find is that we don't invest in that area. The owners of these businesses, what we don't realize is that the people who make the money for us are our frontline people, the one who drives your visitors to your location. the ones who takes the order in the restaurant, the one who's at your reception. We see them, we experience them before the owners or the professionally trained people in the background, say the chefs or so. And so if they don't up their game, you have lost business right there. There's no repeat coming.
It's quite interesting you say this, because when you gave the Jamaican example, you talked about standards being the hallmark, and Jamaica sees more than 1 million visitors a year.
Yeah.
Do you think that in looking at that as an upside, it's something we can fix, considering the length of time you've been here and the levels of service you've
Definitely,
experienced?
we can fix it, but it's just more than training. Working in the industry before, something I've realized, especially when you do hotels and restaurants, the people who serve, there is a belief, I usually say it's like service equals servitude. And so they don't feel valued. They mainly don't believe they're giving value. I have come across many people, staff of mine and others, and they think that because they didn't do well in school, this is all I can do. So you do it, it brings me a little money. So there's no passion, and many people can't see their way forward. If you talk to many restaurant owners, the staff comes, they go. As a new joint opens up, you can almost be sure that your staff is going to go. The only thing that may save you is if you're paying a little bit higher than the new place. So there's no loyalty and all the things that go on. My experience when I worked in the industry, like talking to different people and just understanding where they're coming from. And then I would say to them, how can we make this work for you? What do you want out of this? Mainly they will not know, but you sit with them and you say, wherever you work, make it work for you. Whether or not you like your boss or that, for the time you're there, what can I learn here? So if I'm a waitress, what can I take from this job so when I go to the next job, I improve myself? Or if I work hard enough at this job, I may be able to save some money to go back to school. So I really do not have to remain at this level. And I usually say to people when they come in, whether it's in the hospitality business or anywhere, I said, I don't expect you to spend the rest of your life here. So make it work for you. And once it's working for you, it will work for us. So it's understanding the training. It's not just running a hospitality training, teaching people to lay tables or lay bed. It's to understand the psychic, where the thinking is, and let these people see the value. I also believe that our government should take an active role in training. And so you set the standards as well. And also as individual business owners, I usually say, don't be afraid to train. People say you train and they leave. I'm like, yes, but you're also making a contribution to society. If you train and train well, and for whatever reason they leave, they go to another place, but at the end of the day, Ghana benefits because the service level rises.
That's right.
And eventually we all benefit. So it's not just running a training, it's to get to the heart of it. Let these people feel valued. I tell you, in Jamaica, I had friends who worked in the hospitality industry. As a matter of fact, it's a very big industry, very big industry. And the basic salary is low. And then what I realized, these people never relied on their salary. Sometimes when it's payday, they don't even realize because they thrive on their tips. They bought land, built houses, send their children to school. Because what happened, it's the way the tip system is done, which is a bit challenging for Ghana, because usually someone does something for you right there, you give them something. Yeah. But we have the tip that goes into a pool, and there's an element of trust. So these workers know that whatever goes into the pool has gone into the pool. And everyone gets it is shared equitably. So then they work. So if you're serving this table and you go to the kitchen to fetch something for a customer or something, and the person at the other table raise their hand or something, someone here just goes over, finds out what they want, give them the same quality service, because everybody will benefit. But when we see, and I'll tell you, working in the restaurant industry, you'll hear the staff say, oh, this person, they don't tip. So they will actually dodge. The person will be there and they pretend like they haven't noticed that someone walked in because this person doesn't give. And then they will rush for the table where they know that this person tip. So if we look at these things, we should realize that these are also motivation. And if you can structure it, package it in a way and make it transparent, and so that the workers trust the system, then that's another way to get value. Then you don't have to be behind them. They won't go to the washroom to hide. They will be out there, they'll be rushing to serve whatever, because aside from the salary they get,
there's also another motivation
and they
to
know
do
it
that.
is fair. So these are some of the things we need to look at.
What do you think is one of the biggest hurdles we're going to have to scale if we can or will ever turn around our fortunes as far as tourism is concerned?
I think it's the perception, because then they're also users of the industry who perceive the workers in a particular way. These girls, you know, that kind of thing. But if we could look in the case of identifying what we have, because it's not just in the cities. There's a lot of tourism potential in every village that you go to. There is something unique about it. So if you're able to package this and educate the people to understand the benefits and that this is for you, it is coming back to you, I think they will be more supportive, so they don't see tourists walking by and they just look and, oh, we don't get anything out of it, whatever. Once they are also involved, you train in the local communities that a local person can be the tour guide in there, showing off an aspect of their culture or maybe an art form that they do or so. And they see the returns, because usually that's a big part. People like, what's in it for me? You know, it's the hotelier who gets the money. It's the government who gets the taxes. Another thing, based on my experience working in the industry, taxes. There are a few entities that are doing well in the tourism industry in Ghana, but the majority are not. They are struggling. The restaurants are closing, hotels are closing. Some of them have a passion because they see the need, they have the skills and the wherewithal to become an intervention, to provide a service or so, but you're just bombarded. And so even before you're able, okay, so you go to the market, you buy your stuff, you sell for lunch, but even before you can go back to the market, there's a tax that attacks you at the beginning. I think in order for us to grow, we need more support from government. You know, there can be a moratorium, there's a time, so you make it attractive and you provide the support services, you support it with the marketing. We leverage on our international connections. Ghana has a very good international reputation. We should use these when we are marketing, but make sure that the person in the business doesn't feel penalized. And so he can bring his room rates down, he can bring the food rate down, you attract more people, you give better service, and overall, you know, it's a small amount that adds up. You know, we do it on the numbers. I usually say when I did corporate gifts, I'm not interested in doing 10, 50 or 100 items. Let's go into the thousands where you make like 20 cents on one. And it's a multiply effect. And
so that you still there's still profitability.
It's still profitability.
But it's also easier on the person who's spending the money.
Exactly. So it work both ways. You get more patronage, so your rooms fill up. So on the numbers you make it more. Your inputs are not that expensive, or even if they are, because your taxes are not that high. You understand? And I also think in terms of taxes, you earn more tax. In terms of government, you get more. You'll have less people dodging. So for what they have to pay, they will gladly pay because they see you're providing infrastructure, you're providing other support. So then they're like, okay, I'll pay because I know what I'm getting back.
Fantastic stuff. Let's talk in a moment about internal tourism. Elsewhere, the locals do patronize tourism. How do you think we can improve local tourism?
Okay, a few things. A lot of people don't know what is where. So we're in our locality, this is what we know. But we don't know that in the central region this is there. We don't know that in the Volta region this is there. We don't have enough people, local people, packaging these local tours and offering people these experiences. At Kakum, we get a lot of locals. They come in church groups, organizational groups, school groups, that kind of thing. But largely that is it. Another thing is offering special rates. The tourist season in Jamaica starts the 15th of December and it peaks up. But during the slow season, what the hotels do, they offer special packages for Jamaicans. So a family of 4, you, your wife and your children, you go to a hotel, you stay in for a weekend at, as we say, giveaway price. And also it's all inclusive. You get 3 meals a day, that kind of thing. But that's another way to also get your locals to support the industry, support in terms of, we say, rooting for it. So aside from spending money, anything tourism, they'll make sure, don't drop the rubber there. You understand that kind of, don't listen, because once I'm benefiting,
Then
I can have this,
it
exactly.
works.
And if I can come to a nice hotel with my family, I mean, normally I wouldn't be able to afford it, but if at a time of the year I can take my family and have this experience, how would daddy feel? He feels great that he can give his wife and children will go back to school and say, oh, I went to this place, that kind of thing. And you know, it brings a good feeling, a feel good. It has that feel good effect as well. And so because of that, you want to protect the industry. So it is creativity. We have to be creative in getting more Ghanaians on board. We have to inform them. We have to package it in such a way that they understand the background for what it is. We do shared culture, so we can do cross. So if you're in this region and we're in this region, 2 tour operators at different location, you do a shared experience or a cross experience, and it brings us together as well.
Fantastic stuff. We're going to take another break, and when we come back, we'll hit the back straight. This is the Executive Lounge with me in Shirado. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to the Executive Lounge with me in Shirado and my guest, Maisie Howell, Acting Executive Director of the Ghana Heritage Conservation Trust. Maisie, how important is it for us to push local tourism in when it's difficult to get to some of these places?
That's interesting. Infrastructure is next to everything. If your sites are inaccessible, only the few will dare or brave it. If I'm going to say Kakum, for instance, and it's going to take me 5 hours from Accra, I'm going to find something else to do. And so it is very important that we have access, whether it's motorable access. If your destination is one that someone has to cycle to, if you want to give that experience, then at least the route to get there should be good. So you should be able to go in and out. If you're going into a new area, you may just want to have more than one experience, and they may be located in different areas in the area. So you should be able to move between one attraction to the next before nightfall, have your experience, and then head out.
Wow. Now, so all things being equal, we've achieved infrastructure development to support all of these. Safety is a big issue when it comes to these things. And are we there yet? What do we need to do? Are there examples to follow?
Okay, whether or not we're there yet, I'm not sure what happens in most other sites, but I can speak for the Kakum National Park. We do not compromise on safety. It is a extremely important to us. You imagine Kakum having one incident where someone is hurt. You know, that's the end of us. And so we have a rigorous maintenance culture. Every day before any visitor is allowed on the canopy walkway, our maintenance team go the full length of the walkway, checking to make sure everything is in order. If there's anything...
To walk all the 7 canopies, they climb up?
They climb up. They have to. It is their job.
Wow.
So they are employed for the canopy walkway. And so they check to make sure the ropes are okay, the flooring boards are in place. If something is loose, they have to fasten it back. So we do all of that before we allow anyone to walk on the canopy walkway. And this is done daily. No joke.
Wow.
It has to be done. Because the highest part of the canopy walkway is 40 meters above the forest floors. Forest floor, yeah. So you think about that. And so we do those daily maintenance, and then we do 2 major maintenance per year. So every six months, we do a major maintenance. We sometimes have to change that area around the tree where you stand on. It's called a tree platform. We sometimes change out the whole thing. So we build new platforms. We change ropes. We change the netting to make sure it's okay. We change the floorboards that you walk on. The cables that support them, you know, they're coming all the way from down. We check those, and we change where is necessary. As a matter of fact, we're just coming out of our second maintenance period for 2017. So we do all of that just to ensure that our visitors and everyone who uses the canopy walkway, they're safe. And that they feel safe.
Would you say that in your case, these are things that you're doing proactively? Is there a need for legislation to ensure safety of tourism sites?
Yes, there is need. However, we have to first come up with the standards. Because if you just say your site has to be safe, what is safety? Okay. What do you consider safe? Say on a boat ride, if that's what you're offering. What is safety on a canopy walkway? What is safety on a hike through the forest? So we have to set the criteria, identify, set them, and then we do benchmarks. And then you can implement them. So just doing legislation by itself is not it. You have to make sure whatever you legislate, it can be applied. And also, someone can follow the process. So if you have a new staff or whatever, and you go through, of course you'll do some training as well. But if the person is on his own, he should be able to follow it. It's not, okay, so when do we do this? There should be time, distances if needs be, weight, how many people should be on a bridge at any given time. Our walkway can take 3 elephants. You know, our elephants in the forest are very large. But of course, we're not going to put that many people. Persons going on, adults, the number of adults on any bridge at any one time is different from the number of small children. So standards are very important. And when you have standards and you have nailed them down into a system, it's part of what you market for your tourist destination. And so your visitors, whether locally or internationally, they feel safe. Okay, I can trust this. So I will go and have this experience. Because it's more than just having the experience. You want to make sure when you're having it, it's almost like total abandon within reason. You know, although from the canopy walkway we have, the stories are very many. You know, you'll be there, and I've heard people make promises to God that if you see me through this, and yeah, you know, some start to sing, some start to pray, but they're having the experience, and at the end, when you get to the end, you're like, yes, I did it. But it just has to be safe. And so I think so far people feel safe at Kakum. I think partly it's because they have never heard of an accident. So
because there hasn't been one.
There hasn't been one, and we really don't boast about our safety record. That is not something you boast about.
That's true.
It is a necessity. It needs to be done. And so we don't really have a chip on our shoulders about, because every single day we have to ensure that it is safe. We can't let up.
Fantastic stuff. So you recently added some attractions to the park.
Yes. Yeah.
Share with us some of what you've done and into the future.
Yeah, for the longest while, the main attraction, or the attraction for Kakum National Park, is the canopy walkway. And some persons have been twice, they've been 3 times. The next time they bring friends who have visited, and then there's nothing for them to do because I've had this experience already, then what? And so we keep getting requests from visitors, and also we've noticed that the user numbers on the canopy walkway sometimes go down. And partly it's not because we don't see the numbers coming through the gate. It is because lack of something else to do. And the forest is large. So in the forest now we have hiking trails. You can go on hikes into the forest. There's a tree house experience, which is about 30 meters above the ground that we have. We also have, like I said, there's bird watching facility, and the best view is from the canopy walkway.
Wow.
That has to be arranged because the best time for bird watching is early morning or late evening. So these have to be booked in advance. But then more than that, we realize that there needs to be more interaction. We get a lot of children. What else can they do? And so we have developed this unique, what we call a children's park. It's actually part of a larger concept of a nature park within Kakum. But we're doing it on a phase basis. So this first phase is a children's park, nice landscaped area. We have play structures, and they're all made of natural materials. We have a lot of animals in the forest, but of course we can't disturb them. And because over time they had more or less graduated to the heart of the forest, so you don't see them. So in the children's park we have sculptures of bongo, tortoise, and a huge forest elephant. And these are actually animals that live in the forest. And so the children can play and learn in this natural environment. They can interact. The way the place is laid out, parents like yourself, you can come with your laptop, maybe browse while you watch your children, or just socialize with your friends. But added to that, we have an animal viewing zone. For many years, people say, we come here, there's no animals, or they go on the canopy walkway, and I usually ask them, are you surprised? The amount of noise we make, the poor animals, they run away. However, in response to that, we have a 1 hectare parcel of land in the forest, which we have enclosed. It's in its natural state. And so we are now populating it with some species of animals that actually live in the forest. And I must stress that we do not take those animals from the forest. No hunting. Wildlife is there to ensure that no one hunts in the forest. And so it's a natural space, so the animals, there's a stream passing through, so they can get their water, although we have put in a water hole for the dry season. But the trees are there, the forest area is there, so it's almost like a mixture of forest and savanna. So the animals, they can flow between here and there. They are not in cages. We do not cage animals. So the experience for the visitor is that you walk through this area, this vast area. You'll see the animals grazing, or they're taking a nap, or whatever they do. And so you actually walk. They're safe. They are all, they're not carnivores, so you don't have to worry about that. And so you also experience Kakum from that perspective as well.
Fantastic stuff, and all too soon we have run out of time, but it's been a very engaging conversation. I'd like to say a big thank you to you, Maisie Howell, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Sure, and 5 things I have learned from this conversation. Number 1 is that there's abundance of tourism, there's abundance of opportunities, there's abundance of different things that will intrigue different people at different times. It's important that you be creative enough to spot these things. When you spot them, identify them, package them, market them, whatever it is you're looking for, it's out there somewhere. Number 2, develop yourself. So wherever you find yourself, make it work for you. You may have big dreams, but you always are going to start that big dream small. So if you find yourself in a place where your work may look or seem small compared to some others, or you play that small role in a long chain, remember, you're still part of a chain. It's important that you're just as strong as those you think are big in that chain. The third thing I'm walking away with in this episode is, the third thing I'm walking away with today is the fact that you must remain passionate. I've observed throughout the conversation with Maisie that talking tourism, living hospitality, working in the sector is something she just lives for. And she's very energized when she talks about it. So find something you're passionate about and go after it. It will bring you fulfillment. And have a heart of service. That's the fourth thing that I have had. To serve on the trust, the Ghana Heritage Conservation Trust, you must have a heart of service. And Maisie clearly does. Now, that heart of service saw her come to Ghana, first for 6 months, and next thing you know, she lives here. She's been coming and staying here with us for over 20 years. Imagine that, what you could do if you choose to serve. And the final thing is that you must look for like-minded people to work with you and always aim only for the best. Because if you have the best of standards, it affects everybody around you. If you have people who are pushing you forward, people who are working with you to achieve great things, then the possibilities indeed are endless. Thank you for tuning in to the Executive Lounge. A big thank you to our friends at Villa Monticello and X-Men for grooming, as well as the team and the producer. We'll see you again next week when we bring you more Executive Lounge. As always, go forward, make rain. Shalom.